for this sixth but last panel. Although it's going to be a very cool conversation and not just about the topics we have, which is about user acquisition and how to diversify user acquisition, but also based on the people we have in the panel, because I think we're going to learn a lot based on what they're building and the games they have as well. So without any further ado, we'd love every one of you to actually first introduce yourself, who you are and what you do. Starting with you, Heidi.
Well, I'm Heidi, Heidi Christine, and I'm CMO of Pixels. We are a Web3 game, which I'll speak a lot about in a second.
Yeah, my name is Timothy Tello. I'm the founder and CEO of Ethics. We're an ad tech layer recreating IDFA for mobile games and monetization.
I'm Alex Jivov. I'm the VP of Global Partnerships at SKALE Labs. We are the world's largest gaming blockchain. Excited to be here.
Perfect, thank you guys. So talking about the game first, so Pixels. I mean, everyone knows about Pixels, what you achieved in the running ecosystem. So I would like you to actually, because it's all about user acquisition, it's about growth as well, and you grew so much over the years based on what you built, the relationship you built with some communities as well. So could you explain a little bit this growth of Pixel over the years?
So I get asked about Pixels growth a lot. It's a common question. And I think people always want me to tell them like, oh, do this one thing and you'll grow like crazy. The truth is that there's so many different like growth hacks or different growth measures you can take, right? But one thing that gets skipped a lot when we're talking about growth is actually retention, right? Because first of all, I think a lot of people think growth is linear. You know, it goes like this, and it absolutely does not. It goes like this, right? So, okay, we did like a play to airdrop campaign, and then it levels out. Okay, we did something else, and then it levels out. But if you do you put all your resources into these campaigns, right? And then there's nothing sticky, then it's just wasted resources. So I always like to speak about the retention, like what keeps people there after you've done your growth hack. And that's really like the meat and potatoes of this, right? That foundation. So for us, and what I'm getting to here is building like a really strong community that is sticky, right? So people get really excited about your campaign, about your growth hack, about whatever caught their attention, and then they're like, oh wait, I actually want to spend more time here. This actually feels good. Like this could be a safe space for me, or like a home, or you know, they start to build relationships and what. So it's like honing in on that foundation to keep it sticky, and that retention is what really continues to propel our growth.
We're going to talk about the different reasons why actually you have this stickiness among your players based on everything you launch. Not just about the token, but we're going to talk about the token for sure, because it plays a huge role in your user acquisition / retention strategy on your side. So we're going to come back to you to talk about that. But to talk about also team about IDFA. It should be something everyone is aware of, but it would be good also for you to explain what it is a little bit, and how do you think IDFA is actually impacting the user acquisition strategy for your company?
I think IDFA should be something everyone knows about, but don't. You'd be surprised how many people in a $360 billion industry doesn't know where $200 billion comes from. And it's coming from the use of ads, the efficacy of ads, how that is used to target market, not only for user acquisition, but monetization within a game. This is why 90,000 people have lost their jobs this year, is because they can't monetize in video games anymore. So IDFA is kind of like what she's talking about. You have to draw them in, right? It costs about $32 to find a paying player. Then you have to keep them in the game, right? How do you do that? You use ad-based targeting reward systems to do that. You do airdrops to them. You do different things that only you can really do in blockchain. Where you can track that across, but then you have to be able to then circulate those people back across with lookalikes and different audience groups, and that's how you pull them in again. So there's a whole bunch of things that people don't realize that come across with the data of ads, and how that's supposed to really push both video games and just the internet forward. And it's just something that's been completely missed over the last 3 years.
Do you feel like can game companies rely on advertisements still today to attract new players?
Well, the $1 trillion hasn't gone away that brands spend every year to run ads. It's just been put somewhere else because the efficacy is just not there in games right now. We need to bring that $200 billion of that trillion back into games, and then we need to subsidize that to create retention models.
And I did see something like coming to San Francisco, and in the plane I was looking at a few data, a few numbers, and I saw that in the US specifically, 3 or 5 big games actually hold 70% of the ad placements, which is...
That's because they can take their audience and use AI assumptions to kind of get a good generalization of who their audience is. So 13 to 17-year-old males, 22 to 48-year-old women, whatever it is, they can do a general assumption, and then the ad brands, okay, well, this is my age, sex, location, whatever I'm looking for. I'm just going to put my ad money right there. But the value of that ad, what used to be 10 cents or $1 is now less than a cent.
And how do you see a way indie game developers are actually not, but every game company who doesn't have the budget of these big game companies could have, could they rely on advertisement? And maybe you can talk about DeFi and what you try to do on your side.
Yeah, so we're replacing the use of cookies through custodial wallets. You don't need to opt in. You don't need to figure out who the player is doing. So we take all the payments that we run, all the payments that our partners run, we take that receipt, we apply it to a custodial wallet, and then we advertise directly to the custodial wallet. We never know who you are. We know who you play with, what games you like, what things you transact. We use AI and assumption models to figure out who you are based on lookalikes that are similar to you. So anyone could use it. It's free to use. We don't charge anything for it. It's just we monetize on the back end of converting people into paying people.
Alex, going to you for the SKALE environment and ecosystem. When you have a game company coming to you, it's either because they feel like the network of developers that you have is actually amazing, but also the tech, the infrastructure. But at some point, we know for the fact that some game companies are looking for chains because of the trouble they may have in user acquisition, and they see chain maybe as an opportunity. How do you actually treat with them and their specific demand?
It's a great question. Well, SKALE, as the name implies, is all about kind of the next step in scalability. We just launched our Indie Web3 accelerator for Web2 games that are not only looking to bring net new Web2 games into Web3, but actually remaster old games that have been around for 5, 6, 7 years, had an existing community, and now just need to take that next step. And the reason we can do that is that from day one, we are all about the infrastructure support, because the user acquisition is one side of things, but you also have to consider that they're also running a business. It's always a race to, can they actually get to a revenue positive model? Can they have the users to actually survive for the long term before they actually run out of what their runway is, like any other business would be. So from our standpoint, we provide our grants specifically for user acquisition and growth. It's in SKALE tokens, it's specifically for KOLs, tournament rewards, leaderboard rewards, etc. But then we also provide the infrastructure support on the front end so that they don't have any costs of running on the SKALE blockchain in terms of our subscription model. So they actually can get to that initial user acquisition phase, that 0 to 1 element. And that's what I always talk to all of the developers I work with. Yes, user acquisition is incredibly important, but there's always going to be bridging that gap for when you're struggling through getting those initial games. And we'll talk about how we can use those channels properly to get through that as quickly as possible, because I think the problem in the space currently is a lot of Web3 developers are hyper-focused on getting the grants or getting anything that's just gonna give them runway just for the sake of runway, and they think of user acquisition as either secondary to that or in support of that when it's actually the reverse.
Can agree more with that. Talking about the communities, what's amazing with Pixel is you actually have one community of players, but you actually gather a lot of different communities, mostly Web3 communities / running communities as well, but not only. How do you attract those communities in Pixel, and how, because you were talking about retention, how you make sure they still are involved in your ecosystem?
So there's lots of different examples I could pull here, but one that we're kind of known for is our founder, Luke, and myself do a weekly AMA every Wednesday. For 1 hour, we live stream with our community, and we answer questions, and we talk about the project and what's new, what's coming, or what just launched, or our goals, and even through the hard times. Trust me, it can be nasty in that comment section sometimes, and it can also be really wonderful. But what it has done is really bring like us to our users in a pretty unique way, and very consistent. We've been doing it for over 3 years. I actually think we're technically one of the biggest podcasts in Web3 now, which is wild. So that's just like one example of like we have been very accessible to our users, and that's led us to be able to really empower our users and kind of like continue the culture building that we really want. So we were very intentional in the culture that we wanted, which is like we honed this term like 3 years ago now called farmer friendly. It's a farming game if you don't know. So be farmer friendly, and it basically just means like welcoming, family friendly really is what it means. We don't even allow swearing, those sorts of things. And back to your, like actually, let me talk about another specific case of, another thing we're known for is we integrate a lot of NFT PFP collections into the game to be used as avatars, right? So we started doing this 3 years ago, and now it's super normal, everyone does it. Back then it was less normal, it was kind of new. And back then it was a marketing tool for us. We would go to communities and we're like, hey, do you want a place to hang out in the metaverse? Cool, like come and we'll integrate you. And suddenly those, I used to joke and say that we were giving utility to JPEGs, basically giving like a home outside of a Discord or whatnot for some of these collections to hang out. And now we see a lot of communities that either exist in pixels or outside wanting to integrate whatever or create a collection to represent themselves. So you know, the basis of all of this is that we're really strengthening and empowering micro communities to be built in pixels and like have a home there and like have a really strong hold there.
I love it. If we go back to the SKALE ecosystem, you said it yourself. When you have this conversation around user acquisition and how you could help them with the SKALE ecosystem, you have a lot of games, we know that. And based on that, do you feel like using maybe the SKALE token or maybe not? Do you feel like you're trying to build synergies between the games you have within the gaming ecosystem of SKALE? Does it make sense?
I think it's absolutely critical. I think Tim already made a great point in terms of bringing a lot more money and having much more intelligent ad strategies in order to be driving users, but that's also one part of the picture. The reason that we have our hub system and that we have our dedicated gaming chain is that people naturally gravitate to similar style games. Myself, who's, as everyone here knows, is a huge nerd, I will play a Minecraft and then I'll play everything Minecraft adjacent and then kind of just go in that circle for a while. That's a normal gamer strategy. So essentially what happens is by us consolidating at a technology level where all the gamers are, it creates a rising tide lifts all ships situation where people can explore new games, they can join new communities, they can learn new things about blockchain because every game in this space has really interesting takes on the technology as well. So I think that part of it is absolutely key to any user acquisition strategy. If you're having games in silos, then the moment their retention drops, and I think Pixels is unique in this, because usually it's like this in terms of the drop-off. And we're really lucky that we have some of the best retention in the space, that we can keep the communities basically cycling and trying new things, and then they're in there for the long term. We've had gamers in our network that have been with us for 3+ years, longer than I've been there, which is a miracle in this space.
Obviously you guide them on that, but do you also see some creative ways from your games to work together? Like, do you see something interesting happening?
In terms of creative and interesting, I think that creativity and the interesting part of it is already natively present in terms of blockchain, renting of IP, NFT sharing, PFPs, all of those things already allow for a tremendous amount of internal flexibility in terms of like, they'll design their own shared collections, they'll have these shared events across different universes that usually aren't related to each other whatsoever. They'll have shared airdrops, they'll have things that is not possible in the Web2 space, and that really lends itself to the actual kind of native Web3 gamers who understand the space, but also as a draw for the Web2 entering Web3 gamer.
So the advertising ecosystem is a little bit, I would say, not in a good situation because you don't have trust anymore between the advertisers, the publishers, and also the players based on what they would like to see in the advertising they're facing within the game. So how do you actually put trust again into this ecosystem and with these three parties?
Well, I think that's a hard question. I don't think there's trust to ads because no one wants to see an ad. I think the only value to an ad right now is Mark Zuckerberg gets it, right? He gets all the money, or Apple gets all the money. What we do changes the whole dynamic. We give it back. We don't take a single dollar. Like, we make money if you were to convert, right? We get a commission like an affiliate marketer would, right? Like an affiliate marketer, if you get them to buy something, you get 10%, and that's how it should be. It's your time, and time is the only thing of value in this world. You trade time for money, but if it's my time and my data that's making that ad valuable, I should get the money for that. And I think that's something that people can respond to. And that's something the blockchain can provide. If you're watching the ad, you should get paid for it. And if you want to go play pixels with that money, you have every right to do so. Mark Zuckerberg has no right to take the money from you and use it how he wants to. It's your time, it's your data. So I think trust is, the blockchain can give you trust by giving you the value back for your time.
So do you feel like it's a thing around identity as well? Because I know that in terms of users and players, users in general, they don't like so much to share their own data to be used in advertisements. But on your side, do you feel like there is a need for these users to decide on the kind of data they will be able to share?
Well, we don't ask for their identity, so it's kind of even easier than that. I look at it very similar to, like, here in the States, we have social security numbers, right? The government does not know me as Tim. They know me as a 9 series of numbers. Just like in the blockchain world, we don't know you as your name. We know you as your wallet address. So instead of looking at you as, Tim or Kim or whoever you are, I don't need to know. Instead, if I look at what you bought, the things that you've done, the games that you've played, because I can see those transactions, I can connect those to wallets that have been connected to you in those games, I can start to piece together things. So, we used to do an example with football. If you're playing Madden football and you happen to buy, a Dallas Cowboys jersey, because I'm from Texas, I don't like the Cowboys, but let's just say them, and an Emmitt Smith card, well, I can learn a lot from that, right? One, you probably are from Texas, or there's no reason you would buy Dallas because everyone hates Dallas. The second thing is you bought an Emmitt Smith card. You're definitely older than 30 years old, because if you aren't, how do you know who Emmitt Smith is? So I can start breaking these things down through AI and starting to make assumptions based on just the things that you're doing at a micro level. And I can use that to advertise to you, and then I don't need to know who you are at all. This is where Brave got it wrong. You had to opt into Brave. And by opting in, 67% of people do not opt into anything. And you're definitely not getting me to opt into anything. And so how do I do this in a way that can incentivize you without ever having to break that trust, without ever having to ask you, what's your name? What's your age? What's your sex? What are you doing here? Why are you here? It doesn't matter to me. And honestly, I don't care. And so I just want to know what you're buying, why did you buy it? And I can see that just from the receipt.
What kind of, exactly what you say, you're working with assumption models to actually suggest some ads based on what you see and the kind of data it's available, but also we're talking about on-chain data.
Well, no, not just on-chain, it's Web 2 data too.
No, let me rephrase it. If we have to talk about on-chain data, what kind of new data, what kind of new visibility you're giving to a game companies if you also rely on on-chain data?
So what can I add to it? Well, so again, you got to understand that IDFA was everything you put into your iPhone, everything you typed into your MacBook, they were copying. So Google's everything you type into a Google search. That doesn't mean you're actually going to buy something for what you Google search or where you went to. It just means you have some sort of interest toward it. But I Google random things. If you know Sydney, my BD person, she Googles everything I say to see if I'm right. Like it's Google means nothing to what a person actually cares about, right? But what you buy, that matters. So, Axiom and LiveRamp did a study a few years back. And in that study, they figured out if you take the last 5 transactions that someone did, within a deviation of 3 points, they could figure out your credit score. That's crazy. Just through AI and machine learning. I don't need to know all this random information about you. I can guess when you're going to go to McDonald's just by what you bought last week. That's wild. And so then I can put McDonald's ads in front of you, where the chances of you actually buying McDonald's, because I gave you that ad, airdropped you a French fry coupon, and sent you on your way, much higher.
That's very scary for sure. If we try to go into a different world, which will be KOL, which is another way for user acquisition, and it's I feel like it's a very specific world when we talk about KOLs in Web3. And we love Pixel to talk about that because, I mean, you said it, you might have the best podcast, maybe in the Web3 space, but also I see you everywhere coming from YouTubers talking about pixels. So how important are KOLs for you, and how do you try to use them? And do you feel like they are different from what you could see in the gaming world without saying it's Web2 or anything?
Ooh, good question. So I think the definition of KOL is kind of different to a lot of people. So for me, it's more someone that it has like a massive following and speaks a lot about maybe crypto-specific things, and also seeks brand partnerships and whatnot. And the reason I'm saying all of that is we haven't really done a lot of KOL marketing, paid KOL marketing, but we have a extremely successful content creator program. And what we've done there is really incentivize our users to become content creators and create anything that they want about any of our products or our games. And you know, we have a full team that actually runs this creator program. It's become such a strong micro community in Pixels. And we've allowed anyone to be a creator. We don't care who you are. We don't care how many followers you have. If you're just kind of following the guidelines of like the tier of creator, why not? Great. And then you get the reward for doing so. And we actually just launched a feature. The beta just finished yesterday or today, which is content creator codes, right? Which is giving, so if you purchase something in the game using our Pixel token, the creator gets a kickback and you get a discount, right? So it's like what you were speaking to earlier. So our content creator program is really, it's been like born out of that foundation I was talking about. Like a lot of our creators are users that have been around for years. And then they, you know, their friend created a video and they're like, that's cool, I want to do that. And then they start doing it and then they tell their friends about it. So it's kind of just been like this organic like blossoming of a creator program versus like paid KOL marketing, which can be super successful in itself. It's just not the path that we've taken.
And on your side, for SKALE, definitely kind of the conversation you may have with the gaming ecosystem and the games you have. So what kind of relationship you trying to have between KOLs and your games, so it doesn't matter for you, you try to escape a little bit this ecosystem yourself? Or?
Well, personally, I have a dream. And that dream is that some of the best, from the KOL side of things, I work more specifically on kind of the more traditional user acquisition strategies, accelerators, working with just general marketing strategies. Ben on our side, who's given some great points today, is working more specifically with our KOLs. We have amazing KOLs, we love working with them. But the dream is exactly what Heidi said. Some of the most successful games on the planet to this day will have players that just got really into the game that it would first launch 4 or 5 years ago, became YouTubers, just started playing that one game. Now they have 500,000, 750 million plus subscribers, and then they are just enjoying playing the game while also running a business, while basically becoming a KOL for that one specific game. It is a fully organic process that evolved into a business. That is the ideal scenario. That's how great games are made, and that's how you get amazing retention. Civilization, one of the longest running game series in the world, has one YouTuber that's been posting about every single game for the last decade. And now that's his full-time living. If we had something like that for every single one of our games, it would be amazing. So that's the ultimate that we go to. Now, from a KOL as it exists now perspective, it's really a question of just focusing on KOLs that are also have the belief in the games and also the technology. Because there is a difference between the KOLs that are treating it more as a business versus the ones that are trying to actually amplify good projects. And that's a really important thing that we look for. Because if you go down one route, then there's no loyalty. And then no one really wins except for a monetary perspective, which I think is, you don't have good retention there.
Yeah. I could jump into that. I don't like KOLs, I'll be honest with you. I built one of the first ever influencer gaming companies back in like 2015. We worked with Glue to do the Kim Kardashian game. We put guava juice in a game. We did all of that early on, but those are creators. They're not KOLs. And every KOL I've ever met, it's money first, promotion second. That's not who you want to work with, ever. If anyone's coming to you and saying like, hey, we want to do this, all they're doing is trying to push. And I think the whole substructure of Web3 is wrong. We're all chasing the same 30 million bozos around. We gotta stop. There are 4 billion gamers in the world. We need to focus elsewhere. You know, when we built POQ, we had one of the largest esports platforms on the planet. We worked with Discord. We called it the Mr. Beast model. We basically just gave people like $10 worth of our tokens and said, go, Mr. Beast is successful because he gives money away. Let us give you the money to give away in a tournament. We were getting people for like 3 cents a user, and we were retaining them forever. We were getting the largest Fortnite tournaments in the world. Like literally, like the world champion won one week. Next week he's playing in our tournament and losing, and it was wild. And we didn't pay anything. I think Ben, we showed you that back in the day when we were at POQ. It was wild. Like you can do so much with people who actually love games. KOLs don't love games. KOLs love money.
And just final point on that one, like just hard agree, because in that same vein as well, we have been talking about Web 2 adoption across the whole space, and then when it comes to an actual business perspective, we just don't go after the actual gaming market. It is the most, like, it's insane how many conversations I've had that they say adoption in one sentence, and then the second sentence is, all right, how do we get specifically the Web3 gamers? Why? We're specifically limiting our own addressable market for no discernible reason.
And raising our user acquisition costs, because to chain them, move them from chain to chain to chain to chain to chain to chain, we're just fighting each other. It makes no sense. And every time we move them from one chain to the next game to the next game, the cost to do so goes up because their expectations go up.
Good point. Love it. Actually, based on the time we have, we don't have time for the other questions I was aiming to ask you. It's kind of a bummer because I definitely know that you will have loved it, especially your team. Based on that, but I really appreciate you sharing the expertise you have and everything you're building on your side. And if anyone has a question to any one of the speakers we have, obviously you're welcome. Alan, for sure, there's going to be a 1 minute question, no more than that.
Oh man, I've gone forever on this. Thank you. I'm really pleased you came onto the very last thing, because that is the ultimate thing to me in the Web3 space. Alex, you mentioned earlier on about like how do games choose their chain. The number one reasons we all know is how much money are they going to give me, right? Whether it's in token or fiat or whatever. And the second reason is how many users do you have? Like, you know, how many users you can get my game. And we all know, as Tim just said very eloquently in the end, we're chasing the same 30 million bozos. We need to be chasing the 4 billion gamers now out there right now. So my question is, how do we chase those 4 million gamers, right? What are the strategies that we as the builders should be doing, encouraging the game creators to be doing to not chase the 30 million people who are just wanting a quick buck, right? And who are going to see your game go up and down, as you mentioned. What are those strategies we should be employing to try and encourage games to go beyond the crypto market?
Well, we should drop the whole Web 2, Web 3 thing. That's just, at this point, I'm at the point that I'm just going to say that on camera, because SKALE, we say we're the invisible blockchain experience, and we verbatim say we are infrastructure to enable your success. We're not trying to change your game. We're not trying to say you're a blockchain game. We are a piece of technology that's going to enable you to do things that you would not be able to do with previously available technology, aka all of technological innovation for all of human history. So that's essentially what we do. We say you're building a business, you're building a game, which is first and foremost, you build the game first. You make sure if it's a single player game, it has an engaging story, has engaging mechanics, it has good gameplay, and then you actually build a community around it while you're building the game. That is how you get natural success. It's a universal strategy in the Web 2 space. The moment you start subdividing your market between Web 2 and Web 3, then your model is broken, because now you're servicing, working with traditional publishers and traditional grant programs in Web 2 is not the same as working in Web 3 programs. So now you're running two different organizations for no reason. So you're basically shooting yourself in the foot. And then the second reason besides that is that you're also now trying to build for two markets when it's actually one market. So you build a game, you decide from the outset, this is what I want to accomplish with blockchain, but you're not actually using it as part of your user acquisition. You're not, unless you're specifically doing that to go after Web3 gamers, but if you're trying to build a successful game, you say, we have digital collectibles, use whatever verbiage you want to use, this is what it's going to enable you to do, these are the gameplay elements, here's the game, enjoy. And that's the full story. It's more, you're just making it more complicated than it has to be.
You got to reduce the friction a lot. Like, I think right now, you know, and I've been saying it for years, you know me a long time, I've been saying for years, we're way too degen in Web3, and we need to stop. You know, I've gotten kicked off of stages from people that were just like wholeheartedly like, oh, we need non-custodial wallets, it's your thing, it's no gaming company uses non-custodial wallets. To this day, they're not going to. We need to make life easy. Think of everything that's been a $1 billion company over the last 5 years. You no longer have to get up to answer your door. We have to make life easy. If it's not easy, no one's going to do it. And so, first off, we need to decomplicate all this Web3. I agree with you, Web 2, Web 3 doesn't make any sense. I would then ask you, the best question that I can think of is, why is Roblox the same size as all AAA studios by itself? The reason it is because Roblox switched to a single currency model in 2015. When they did that, they doubled their revenue every year for 7 years until they hit a $59 billion market cap. And now it's even higher than that. But that economy of scale, the ability, the Visa card in America, right? When Visa came to America and we had credit cards, the GDP of America went up 40%. Why do you go to a casino and use a casino chip? Because if you were betting with $1, you probably wouldn't bet as much. You don't care about that casino chip. So creating an economy of scale, blockchain has that in our heart and soul. We can create token models around gaming economies. We can create publishing models. We can recreate farming. We can subsidize indie developers to have one token model across 30, 40 games. So you got to understand the currency of users is content, and the currency of developers is users. There's a little chicken and the egg there, but if you go and put all the pieces together, like Roblox did with 100 games that use one currency, it passes the mom test. Moms will buy that token. Turn around, give it to them, and it'll scale from there.
I will just end it off by saying you asked for strategies, and my response to that is experimentation. I don't think anyone has the answer. These are extremely good answers, and I agree fully on them. And you actually just mentioned something that Pixels is experimenting with, is opening up our ecosystem to more games so that we can attract more different types of users to utilize the Pixel token, right? Just experimenting. We talk about experimentation a lot at Pixels, and we're kind of famous for, oh, sometimes it doesn't work, sometimes it does. You know, we did our first publishing deal back in December. In 2 weeks, we saw a revenue of around 54,000 Pixel. We were like, oh, this works, right? So now we're building an app and some other stuff I can't talk about publicly yet, right? So just keep experimenting. I think the beauty of Web3 and having a token is that you have capital to experiment with that you probably wouldn't if you were in Web2.
That just gave me a more targeted suggestion as well, because I did go on a rant there. I think the most important thing for any long-term successful game, and this is just coming from kind of sandbox game thinking, is giving the player the freedom and the lack of friction that they can come up with their own stories and goals. If you let them start creating their own narrative and saying, okay, I want this sword, and then once I get this, then I'll go to this dungeon, and then when I get that, maybe I'll get that suit of armor, suddenly then you get the mecca of like the one more turn mindset, and then you have those players for the rest of their lives. And that's the goal. It's a very hard gameplay loop, but you have to give them the ability and the space to make their own stories, and then they do your job for you.
Can I agree more on that? We have these thoughts. I've been in the ecosystem because I'm a player, and I understood blockchain because of my experience as a player. And I've always been having this feeling that I'm playing World of Warcraft. I know everyone is saying World of Warcraft, but they say they get into Web3, that's my case. You are putting in a railways where you actually, everyone knows where you're going to go, but what is actually you are the master of your own destiny when you actually play this game. And the ability for you to do anything could come from what you could do for the blockchain, so I can't agree more than that. Thank you guys for being a part of the last panel, sixth panel. I know it's a long day, so thanks for everyone who actually come in, and I wish you a very good day and a very good GDC for everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.